Okay, this is our Prowler, and it's a 93, and for the second year in a row I've broken a spring going up to the mining claims and back. Now, while the mining claim road is flat out horrible, brutal road, at the same time, yeah, we shouldn't be breaking springs every year. So I think that because the trailer's, 18, 19 years old, and what we've got is just springs that have reached their working lifespan. And since I've always thought they were a little underrated to begin with, now's the time to change. And I think rather than throwing bits and pieces, or what I've been doing is throwing leaves at them and rebuilding them, I think it's time just to start from scratch. So I'll show you how I go through that. So here are my springs, and the problem I have is they just have too many miles. The trailer's 18 years old. They have reached the end of their working lifespan. So I have problems with them slamming into the bump stops anytime the road gets even a little bit rough. And let's face it, there's a lot of step over action going up and down to the Sapphire mine. This is the one I broke. I managed to piece her together and get it home by stacking up CJ5 Jeep leaf springs. And so I took the two broken parts, the two broken leaves out, bottom two, and stacked up three CJ leaves, which worked out to be the exact same height. Bolted them together, and by God, it worked. But it isn't as strong, and so the axle is sagging, and I ended up with only 1 inch of travel before I slammed into the bump stop. My goal, these are 3,500 pound axles, so they're 1,700 pound, 1,750 pound springs, is I'm going to upgrade this to 37 if I can find them, 4,000 if I have to, meaning each spring will be a 2,000 pound spring. You know, they put these springs in these trailers and they are right at the ragged edge, and so if this machine is 8,000 pounds, they put 8,000 pounds of springs under it. The axle tubes are usually pretty strong. In talking with people and working on trailers of different types over the years, one thing I've noticed is that they'll use the same size axle tube on a lot of axles, and the actual weight limit is decided by that spring. For instance, you'll have a 25-foot trailer and a 35-foot trailer, and the two of them will be on the same axle tubes but with very different springs, and you can tell that when you go in and replace the bearings, and they're all the same part numbers that they were before. So bolting 4,000 pound springs to it is not necessarily the catastrophe that it might seem. I'm not putting any more weight in the trailer. I'm just putting a little stronger shoe underneath her, so that with luck I get another 18 years out of the running gear. So again, it isn't going to 4,000 to overload it. You're not changing the weight in your trailer, you're just putting a little stronger stuff. You don't want to go to 5 or even 45, because then it'll just bounce around and ride like a tank. And I actually know somebody who had dramatically overloaded springs, actually a whole overloaded axle set underneath a big fifth wheel, and you follow them down the road and you'd actually see air below the tires. Those springs weren't flexing at all. They were too big. I just want to go up a little step, and if I bought a brand new fifth wheel, the very first thing I would do to it is I would upload the springs 500 pounds if I could, because you know, you're just running it right at the ragged edge, and these are the parts that break. I've got the majority of the weight on jack stands, and if you don't own 4 jack stands, go buy them. And now car, go get some nice truck ones. Put the camper on that, then extend the lower legs, the rear legs rather, and then the front legs, and just give her 8 contact points here on the ground. Spread the legs. You can see where they've been just hammering, and you know, that's really hard on the insides. While you got her up in the air, it's a good time to check the brakes and adjust them if they need it. And it's a good time to check all your wheel bearings, so if everything seems well. We'll say this Prowler at 18 years old, wow, I usually park it undercover. It's got a lot of miles, and they've been some pretty hard miles, and I'll be damned if she hasn't held together pretty well. Quite a bit better than many of the newer trailers with the people I go camping with. First step to cracking the nuts loose, wire brush them. Get all those years of road grime and grit out of the threads. Once you've done that, a little bit of your penetrating oil, and this is liquid wrench. It works fine at the beginning. Put a little bit up top, it wicks down, and a little bit at the bottom of each. Once you get to actually cracking them loose, I put a drop of regular motor oil on there. Now that everything's had a chance to soak for a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and start pulling them off. I'm pulling off this spring here because it's one I know that has never been repaired. So I know it is factory, so when I walk in and I do my sizing, I know it'll be okay. These four here have got to come off, at which point, because the axle is on top, it'll just hang there. Then you got to pull the one at either end, the top one on the step overs. When you get them loose, shake your step overs, make sure your bushings are okay. You can buy greasable bolts to replace these with. I don't know if it's necessary or not, because it depends on how much you pull them and how much salt they get into. But start with these. If they get tough, heat them up with a torch. Just heat the nut only until it's nice low red, and they'll come right off. But don't burn yourself. Okay, now that that's loose, I'll go ahead and pull the front and rear. Your axle should sit there just fine until you start actually removing bolts. You can get the nuts off. Then put the jack under the axle, lift it just slightly. It should basically float pretty much all on its own. Pull the pins, remove the spring, set the axle back down on the tire. Now I've got the axle up, so it's floating over the top of the spring, and you should be able to work the bolts out on either side. And there you go. One trailer spring in all of her barely adequate glory. And when you look at it, you can see how it curves, goes flat, stops. You can see where the rust is flaking off. Get the light right there. It's flat, and then it curves again. So this spring is absolutely shot. She's totally flattened out. So tomorrow I'll go into Missoula and I will try to pick up 4 uprated springs. If I can't do it in Missoula, I'll buy them online. You can see the bushings wore out there. I'll buy them online, 4 uprated springs. Thanks for watching. Good luck with yours. And again, I'm telling you, if you're having trouble with tires, go put some heavy duty truck Toyos on. You will never regret it. I bought these 4 used. I've never blown a tire since. Never. And uprate your springs. About 250 pounds. And once again, you'll never regret that either. Thanks for watching.